Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Jim Bouchard. He is a leadership activist, author, speaker, and founder of the Human-Centric Leadership Movement. And his mission is to help leaders keep it human. Welcome to the show, Jim.
Oh, thank you very much. It's an honor.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show, Jim. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll be learning from you about how to keep leadership human. But before we come to this, let's understand a bit about your journey, your background, so that the audience knows who they are listening to.
Well, this adventure started as a drug addict and a dropout. Aren't you glad you booked me for your show now? It was a long time ago. I was struggling with a drug addiction problem, and that led to eventually part of my recovery was to get involved in martial arts. I didn't realize at the time that was going to become a 30-year career, but it did. And along the way, I'm making the very long story very short. Along the way, people started asking me to come out and speak about that adventure, but also about the philosophy of martial arts and how to apply that to business and to real life, particularly in leadership. I had written an article for LinkedIn Pulse on compassion in leadership, and that exploded all over the world, which actually led to an invitation to do a webinar that originated in Saudi Arabia for entrepreneurs in the Middle East. And that's when we put out the Sensei Leader, which was the book we were speaking behind at that time. And the rest is, as they say, is history. Ended up getting invitations to speak all over the world. And here we are today to talk about what I learned as a sensei, as a martial arts instructor, which is where my career had led me at the time. And that's how to develop deep, meaningful connections with the people we serve as leaders.
Absolutely. And that is where, it brings me to this whole thing about keeping it human. And that's for the leaders. Help us understand, what do you mean by keep it human?
Right. Well, fortunately, it's funny because I joke around about academic leadership studies and how for a very long time they kind of ignored the human side of the equation. Admiral Grace Hopper many years ago said management is about things, leadership is about people. And for too long, we tried to solve too many leadership issues with management solutions, and that's very difficult. Now when we see the literature, Wall Street Journal, Harvard Business Review, Gallup, Wharton School, all these folks that study these things are really heavily promoting now the importance. Well, I wouldn't even say importance, the absolute essential nature of connecting on a human level. People perform at their best when, and I'd say only when, they know their leaders care, when their work has meaning, and when they have the chance to learn, to grow, and develop. And of course, those are the roles that I learned how to fulfill as a sensei, and they translate perfectly to business leadership. So we're very glad that the academics are coming along now for the ride, even though these things are very ancient. I'm a fan of let's say much older philosophical lines, some which came from India, China, and Japan. And so Lao Tzu and some of these wise people many, many years ago were saying the same things. We just need to update the language and repeat it again, make sure people get it, right?
Right, Jim. Let us be a bit frank in discussion. I will tell you why. Why do we talk about leadership being human, leadership being heart-centered, and all these things? My sense is that all these people who are in positions of power, all these people with lots of money, less money, more money, unicorn, $1 billion and plus what not, $1 trillion, they are very smart people. And they know what they are doing. They also know that it's about money, more money. But they have to talk. And we keep on talking about leadership problem. Do you think they lack the understanding of keeping things human? Rather, they want control over everything that is happening, and all this is just talk to keep on talking. Do you think they are not smart enough to understand it and they don't really want to do it and that this is just talk? So help us understand then why keep on flogging a dead horse? Or do you think the time has come that the age of command and control is dead, as you said, and they will be forced to do it? Help us understand in that backdrop. You are a wise man, Jim. You have seen things from the ground. You understand it. Nobody does things which takes control away from them.
Actually, that it's interesting. You bring up a lot of interesting points, and one of them is, yeah, I am coming from the ground, so to speak, and I think that's very useful. I used to think that drug addict and dropout was a pretty poor resume for someone working in the leadership space. I came to realize it was a very useful one. One of the reasons is because it's about transformation, right? I had to transform myself from a loser to a leader, if you will. And along the way, learning that process of transformation, which is essential to the leadership process. I mean, you could say as leaders, we're in the transformation business. If we're not changing, we're dying. That's just the truth of it. It doesn't matter if you're in business or community leadership or politics. Now, you mentioned, do some of these folks that attain this, and whenever we're talking about philosophy in a practical sense, we have to be very careful to define our terms. One of the terms you brought up was power. Do sometimes people get blinded by power? Well, more so by control. And again, you brought that up as well. Power and control get conflated a lot of the time. Power, from a purely philosophical definition, is nothing more than your ability or capacity to act or perform effectively. That's what power is. Control is sometimes imposing your will to get things done, right? Imposing your will on other people to get things done. A leader operates through genuine power by making other people more powerful. Because I'll argue this to the grave. The only meaningful measurement of your success as a leader is the success of your people. Because by definition, a leader is bringing people together, uniting them in a common cause, done properly. Now, you can't do this alone, right? And you can only be so powerful. You can only get so much done on your own. By empowering others, by making sure other people are learning, growing, developing, and becoming more capable. That's the only way you become more capable and perform more effectively as a leader. Now, control is a different issue, right? A leader leads by inspiring others, by empowering, but by guiding them. A dictator, on the other hand, can get things done. A dictator can get things done. Let's not confuse ourselves about that. But what's the truck of a dictator? Fear, force, coercion, right? And that only lasts so long. And that's why I'm arguing right now, the age of command and control, it's over. Now, unfortunately, there are still organizations and leaders operating with that command and control mentality. Sometimes I see an organization that's financially successful, and they'll challenge me on that, as you just did, which is very useful. And what I want to see then is their churn rate. Are people staying with them? Are they able to accumulate some of what I consider the most essential assets of a leader: loyalty, trust, respect? And usually no. People are coming and going at a rapid rate. How long can you sustain that? Well, unfortunately, it can take a long time for a bad organization or a crippled society to crumble and eventually die out. It can take generations. So a company, for example, if we keep it in those terms because it's easy to understand, can be financially successful for quite some time. Meanwhile, people are coming and going. They're really not doing anything that's going to sustain them over the long term. But unfortunately, I think in our age, we tend to think in very short timelines, don't we? I mean, we tend to think in our lifetime is even a long timeline for most people. And a lot of business leaders think only in terms of quarterly returns. So very difficult to get people to expand their thinking and think, what we do as leaders, the impact we make as leaders is generational. It's going to last beyond our lifetime into the lives of our children and our grandchildren.
Right, right. Why will they show their leadership capability? Why not keep it till their, for their later stages of their life when they lose on the power? Then they will talk great things that will give them much more, a position of thought leadership, and then they will create a new avatar for themselves. Why do it when your dollars are speaking, your money is speaking? And that is because you talked about, are people staying with them? Who cares? They don't care. Because great resignation, they cared a bit, but it's still going on. Work is going on. Quiet quitting, very much on. And now you have got the bots, all these things to replace the people who are fighting against you. So you have got options. You have
That's
got options.
right. That's a
Why do you
terrific.
care? Why will you care if anyone is staying with you? The bots will
Yeah.
stay. You can pay for them. Help us
Yeah.
understand that. You know, why do we talk of leadership
Mhm.
when we talk about only about ground? Anyone can be a leader. Why? $1 million salary. Those people with great designations, they will take it. But you are asking the junior most person to take a responsibility as a leader. Why not those people who have been designated as leaders? They take the responsibility because they are only talking. When it comes to money, they take it. When it comes to responsibility, you tell, let's, we are all in it together. That is not leadership. Help us understand then, Jim, what is leadership in today's time? Because that
Yeah.
has become a very, very clouded word.
You're not kidding. And honestly, I need to invite you to the States here. We need to do workshops together because this debate, this line of questioning is really informative. And you brought up so many important perspectives there. First of all, this is something I've been caught saying lately, and I'll say it again. It's hard to fix bad. Now, I'm blessed to be able to work with companies, organizations, and leaders at this point in my career who are like-minded. I'm preaching to the choir quite a bit. These are people who care. And one of the most important defining traits that I've seen of all really great, effective leaders is this: they never stop learning, growing, and developing. They understand that perfection's not a destination, but it's a never-ending process, which was one of the greatest gifts I think I got from my life as a martial artist, is that understanding. And so, there are people out there that think like we do, that understand that leadership is something that outlasts us, that our impact on the world goes beyond even our lifetimes. And those are the people we work very hard to support, help them grow. Now, they are making a greater impact in the world today. That's the way it is because of what we just said, because they're dedicated to helping other people become more powerful, more effective, helping the people they serve to perform at a higher level. So the impact is immediate. And again, the academic literature is backing us up very clearly on that now. In fact, a company that adopts this type of mindset in their leadership will outperform competition that doesn't by 400 to 600%. And that data is very clear. Now, how do you get people to adopt this mindset? Well, I wish I had the answer to that question. I don't know that we can. And that's why I say it's very hard to fix bad. If someone's committed to the short term and that's it, and again, because they may be successful materially, I mean, there's no arguing that. So how do you convince them otherwise? Very difficult. And right now, I choose not to waste my time on that. However, what you see in a lot of organizations, and we've seen this many times over the last few years, the next generation is coming into the positions of authority. And if they've got this mindset, then they're the ones who are going to increase the power of that type of culture. And so I don't worry about it that much. I don't worry about trying to convince people who are already committed to that short-term materialistic view. If they are, they are. And they've got to live with themselves. Now, the type of leader that we like to support, and I'll argue this too, leadership has nothing to do with rank or title or a position of authority. What does a leader truly do? And that's a question that I asked as a sensei. In fact, some of my instructors challenged me to define what does a sensei do? And it took several years to come down to these three essential disciplines, I call them. But a leader inspires others, touches the heart, not just the head, right? Connects with people on a meaningful level. Empowers, makes sure people have what they need to succeed. You can see this isn't lollipops and rainbow stuff. This is practical on the ground stuff. And guide them, be willing to share their experience, their knowledge, their wisdom face to face in the same room. Now, don't you have people right on your front lines that do this? You don't need a title to inspire. You don't need a title to empower people. You don't need a title to guide people. There are people right on the front lines doing this. And a lot of times they don't want the title. They don't want authority, right? They don't want responsibility beyond what they're doing right now. So this type of leadership should be and needs to be cultivated and nurtured and supported at all levels. Has nothing to do with rank or title. And the more that we do that, then the more we see that expand in an organization's culture. But I find I bring a lot more value when I can support an organization or a group that already has this mindset, and we can help them continue to learn, to grow, develop, and continue to be stronger and to get stronger. Trying to fix bad, that's a tough one. I think that's above my pay grade.
let's talk about from their side. You
Mm,
know, uh, let's consider that they are all very good people, well educated from the best of institutes,
mhm,
from wherever they have worked very hard, technocrats, all those people, and they have attained their positions.
right.
Whatever their situation is, uh, what are the challenges if we look at it from their point of view?
Mm,
What are the challenges that they have? Apart from that, if they cannot downgrade themselves, maybe they cannot, instead of $1 million salary, they cannot go on $500,000. So they have to stick to organizations who can give them more money. But on a realistic level, what are the challenges that they are facing? Imposter syndrome, that is that they have to deal with it. So I want to understand then, what is the present state of leadership? How should we look at them? Are they, if we look at them as pure humans and they want to be human as
mhm.
much as, what is stopping them in today's time?
Yeah, that's an interesting challenge, isn't it? Because there are rational reasons for people acting poorly as far as the human-centric side of leadership goes. There really are. I mean, we get down to it, and again, we have to carve into the best science that we have available to us today. And we know that there are two main drivers of human behavior. And a lot of people don't like to look at it this way. Sometimes, to be provocative, I'll use the word good and evil, right? The words good and evil. But really, it comes down to two things: our self interest and our self preservation. And these are extremely powerful drives. It takes an incredible amount of discipline to keep those drives in check, right? Because sometimes our own self interest and our own need for self preservation can conflict with the benefits of the group, let's say, okay, or what's best for the group or what's best for the long term. The short term gains, the short term returns, it's understandable that organizations and leaders are focused on that. It's perfectly rational. It's perfectly rational for someone to care an awful lot about what their personal material gratification is. But we also know, current science again teaches us that, don't believe me, but but what the research is showing very, very clearly is that the satisfaction of those short-term goals will only give us a very, let's say a very measured baseline, right? Once our basic needs are fulfilled for most people, right? Once our basic needs are fulfilled, we're fairly comfortable. We have food, shelter, some sense of security for the future. Then it takes an awful lot to get somebody to go beyond that and inspire them to go beyond that. So what we're really talking about is separation between motivation and inspiration. Motivation, we're motivated by material things very easily. Motivation is very simple: bribe people or scare them. And it works up to a certain point. Then usually up to the point of an expected outcome. In other words, I can offer you an incentive in the form of, let's say, a sales goal. And you'll likely work very hard to that goal. How do we go beyond that? Now, that's for ourselves, right? Or as we're trying to inspire others. We've got to go beyond that. We've got to inspire. We've got to touch people's hearts. We've got to give them a bigger reason, right? I need a bigger reason than my own gratification in order to exceed those expectations, in order to go above and beyond. And a lot of times, in very practical terms, that's why organizations spend a lot of time and a lot of money on vision statements and mission statements, right? What's that thing beyond ourselves that we can unite people around? How do we transform me into we? And again, that's very difficult work. Nothing that I'm talking is very simple, not easy, right? And a lot of times that's why it gets pushed to the side. In life, it's strange, isn't it? It's kind of a paradox that the simple things are often the things that are more easily left behind. More complex things, I think, engage us intellectually, maybe shiny object syndrome, or we're just caught up in the complexity of life. And let's not be Pollyannish about it. Life and business is very complex these days. We have to train ourselves to return to the center, to return to these simple things that are essential. I'm not even going to say important. They're essential. If we don't take care of these things, long-term success can't be sustained.
Absolutely. Isn't it ironical? Humans are talking about humans to be much more human,
Mm.
and especially the leaders to be more human. As bots, you know, surround us in each and every way that is possible. How do you see then? You talk about that the future of leadership is all
Mhm.
about being human. And amidst all these things, the future that is AI and so many things coming up,
Mhm.
why do you say it's about human when a lot of AI adoption is happening? A lot of leaders do not want, you know, working force in the way it is at the moment. What is the future of leadership as per you, if you help us understand better?
I've been struggling with the challenge of AI, to be honest with you. And I've talked to several AI experts over the last couple of years, and it's both exciting and frightening at the same time. You know, but what it is doing, I think this emergence of AI is really bringing everything we're talking about today into focus. Will AI displace people? It certainly will. Now, will AI replace leadership? I asked it. I wrote an article a few months ago and I asked AI, I said, can you lead? Can you replace leaders? And it was Chat GPT was the program I was using, the platform I was using. It responded back and it said, no, I cannot replace leaders. The reason it said is because it couldn't accept responsibility. Isn't that interesting? That it couldn't take responsibility for whatever it was sharing with us. Now, is AI a powerful tool? Yes. Is it going to displace and replace people? Yes. But we've been through those iterations before, haven't we? This one arguably is probably the most disruptive one that at least you and I have seen in our lifetime. Now, that's why it's even more critical for leaders to weigh these things. And I'm not just talking business leaders, although I believe that they'll lead the way because they have to in a more practical sense sometimes than political leaders will. Political leaders sometimes have a buffer built in that they don't need to react in real time, where business leaders, their survival depends on their reaction in real time. And one of the big problems that we're going to face, one of the big challenges, maybe an opportunity, one of the big opportunities we're going to face is what are we going to do with these people who are truly displaced by AI? How are we going to respond to that? Are we going to respond with compassion? Are we going to try to find a way to make sure that people have useful lives, productive lives, creative lives, even though some of the day-to-day routines that we're so used to, we take for granted, are going to be gone. They're going to evaporate. That's an interesting challenge. I don't have the solution. All I can do right now is kind of provoke the thinking, right? We all need to be thinking about this right now. And somehow together, we have to come up with some sort of answer to this. And I believe strongly in that. Usually, the most difficult questions are not right or wrong questions. They're right versus right. And we're in that situation with AI right now. How do we use it? That's the right way. Is it going to displace people? Well, yeah, that's the right way too. But what do we do with these people? But I believe strongly the answer isn't going to be what you come up with or what I come up with. It's going to be what we come up with together. There's an idea floating around out there that neither of us have considered yet. And I think that's why we need to encourage, healthy conversation, healthy debate, even argument, to make sure that we can start coming up with ideas and have these ideas compete with one another so that we can find some sort of resolution to that, because that's going to focus us very strongly in this area of human-centric, not just leadership, but human-centric behavior in general. What are we going to do with our neighbors when AI starts to displace what they do every day?
Right. My last question to you, Jim, is that with the present state of leadership, especially business and in other spheres of life,
Hmm.
are we walking into the future led by leaders, able leaders, or we are just being pulled or pushed or thrusted into the future by the present state of leadership? How do you look at? Are we safe? Are we not safe? Are we, straightway in the line of fire from the future problems and not prepared for it?
I hope we're not being pushed, as you stated. I hope not. And maybe as challenging as it's going to be over the next few years, maybe this populist movement across the country, across the world, because obviously you've touched on the political side of it there too, which is not my area that I focus on mostly, but it's important. It's part of our everyday life, right? I believe that the populist movement, for better or for worse, we've still got a lot of things to work out, is at least showing that people are becoming more interested, have access maybe to more information. Sometimes it's flawed, but at least it's out there. We have access to more information than any generation ever has. So hopefully people are participating more, at least becoming more interested, right? And we've got a lot to work out, which is again why I emphasize one of the things that's struck me, it's hurt me the last few months, working with groups where there's so much hatred in the room. People that normally get along with each other, work with each other, hating each other because of political differences, you see. And not to get on too much of a soapbox, but we've got to find an answer to. We've got to live together. We've got to work together. There are far more important things to hate each other over than politics, particularly in a democratic society. You know, the idea is that like I said, we should be able to debate and argue about some of these issues, and that should be a healthy, boiling pot, right, where good ideas come out of that. But we can't let the water boil over. At the same time, we can't let it cool down too much, because then there's no debate or stimulation. Everybody just thinks alike and nothing gets done. So we've got to work that out. We've got to work that out on a one-to-one personal basis. And to me, that's where my focus is. When we're in the room workshopping inside of an organization, we're with people who are very different a lot of the time. How do we work together? How do we find the common ground, the things we can and should work on to move forward? And how do we agree to let go of some of these things, some things that maybe I care a lot about, but maybe you're on the opposite side of it. I have to be willing, and as leaders, we need to go first. I have to be willing sometimes to say, hey, you know what? Yeah, let's put that aside. We've got some things we need to work on that we can work on, we can accomplish. Let's focus there, at least for the time being. You can always come back and fight later, right?
Absolutely. Tell us a bit about your human-centric leadership movement. How is it making a difference on the ground?
Well, I hope one to one. That's the thing. I mean, we're global for sure, because we've had the opportunity to speak with people all over the world. But on the other hand, this work is face to face, in person. I hated the whole interruption that COVID gave us, because although it's nice that we're able to do things like this virtually. I mean, we can connect across the planet, right? But I'd rather be sitting right next to you in the same room. And this work, when we're doing workshops, that's very important. Even when we work with organizations virtually, we do insist as much as possible. We do at least one session a year in the room. Human beings we've evolved to be together, and that's the way it is. So this work needs to be one-to-one. And we need to provide, well, the greatest inspiration you can be to another human being is to provide an example, right? To walk the walk. And so as leaders, we need to model the behavior we expect from others. We need to be willing to be in the room, to shake hands, to offer hugs and handshakes, and do this work face to face, to be mentors. These are the things that we really focus on. So these are all ways that we can expand this type of leadership. Now, on a technical level, we just launched it. This is a dream that I've had for years, but we finally found the right platform. We have the Keep It Human Network now, which is a platform where people can get together and share these ideas. We've got discussion groups. We'll have online courses and live events too. But the biggest part of it is leaders all over the world being able to network with each other and share these ideas. Because that's it. When people press me to summarize leadership in one idea, it's that one. Leadership is sharing. A leader shares. The rest of the conversation is about what we're willing to share and how we're going to do it. And we can spend an awful lot of time on that, right? This show would never end.
Absolutely. There is much to learn about leadership and keeping it human and all those things around. And I'm sure a lot of people would want to connect with you, learn more about you, more from you, learn about your human-centric leadership movement. What's the best way for them to do so?
The easiest way right now is to go to thehumancentricleader.org. And that's the fastest way. And there's links to everything else right there.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much.